I would the team that relies on shooting three-pointers. And the interesting thing about this one is this one opened to pick 'em. Then BYU was favored by a point, maybe a point and a half at some point. And now it's gone the other way to where Valpo is favored by 2. So certainly some interesting line movements.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that the line move is based on that shooting backdrop angle, or do you think that there's maybe something more to it?
I think that's probably part of it. I think that people have seen how good that Valpo defense is at this point. And, BYU is certainly a different team away from home than they are at home. They have an extremely good home court advantage, one of the best in the country. BYU, not nearly as good on the road. I'm not saying that they can't win some games on the road. And obviously this is not a true road game, but BYU is not used to going to New York City and playing in Madison Square Garden. Neither team's really going to have a home court advantage, but I think that Valpo's defense really gives them an advantage here because, defense travels a lot better than offense, especially when you're in a place like this. If you look at the schedules that they've played this year, they're actually pretty similar as far as how difficult they were. So I think that Valpo is a team that they're the side that I'd want here. BYU is a quality team. I certainly think that they have some very good players on the team, especially Kyle Collinsworth. But, Valpo is a team. This is really interesting when I was looking at KenPom. Valpo has the second most minutes continuity on the year. So they've had the same lineup playing all the time. Very few injuries, very set lineup there. I think that's a really good thing here in this tournament. You've been around the same guys consistently. It's a very veteran team, a lot of seniors on this team. BYU, a team that, has, as far as minutes continuity, is 247th out of 351. So basically what I'm saying is Valpo has had the same people out there on the floor throughout the course of the season. BYU hasn't. BYU is not near as experienced either. So between that and the fact that Valpo has the better defense, I think that's some good reasons to take Valpo.
In the other NIT semi, George Washington takes on San Diego State. San Diego State, 3-point favorite. You're paying extra chalk most places, but this number did open 4. And, obviously George Washington going to be more accustomed to playing on the East Coast here. San Diego State, long trip for them. How do you see this one playing out?
This is a tough game. This is really a tough game for me. I like Valpo in the other game. I don't know what to think of this game. On the surface, I would like to take an under, 129, 128 and a half. I'm going to have to pass on that one. Both of these teams play slow. Both of these teams pretty good at defense. San Diego State, not good at offense, very good at defense. George Washington, pretty good at defense, pretty good at offense as well. I think if I had to take a side here, I'd probably take George Washington in the points, especially if you can catch 3.5 at some point. I just don't like laying very many points at all in a game that I think should be very low scoring. And I really do think this is kind of a toss-up game. So if you think there's a toss-up game and you can catch 3 or 3.5 points, you have to lean to the underdog. But, I think this is a tough game to call. I think it should be a very good game. Neither of these teams rely heavily on jump shots, so that doesn't matter as much in this game. Both of these teams are pretty veteran-laden teams, so no strong lean from me on this one.
Well, and the one thing about it, you do have San Diego State coming all the way cross country, but they haven't played since last Wednesday, so there's not really a situational angle to be had in that respect. So, it's a little bit unfortunate because that could have been something you could have played with BYU or with played against, I should say, with BYU or San Diego State, but because there's so much time off here, not really a whole lot to be gained from that. But one thing I do want to mention about San Diego State, putting the final nail in Brian Gregory's coffin at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it was only a matter of time, right? Brian Gregory has underachieved pretty consistently, and they had high hopes down there a few times, and they never really got there. And Georgia Tech was one of those teams that could occasionally pull a big upset, but they could never get the consistent good performances. And I think that speaks, to the fact that Brian Gregory has a little bit of a tough time getting his team ready for every single game. There's some coaches that you just know that team's going to be ready to play every single night, and I don't think that was the case there at Georgia Tech with Brian Gregory.
Well, the CIT title game on Tuesday night is fascinating to me. You've got UC Irvine taking on the Columbia Lions of the Ivy League. Irvine, really dominant win over Coastal Carolina on Sunday. Coastal's point guard arrested prior to the game, so they were without him. We saw a significant line move on the Anteaters. They went from about a 3-point favorite to a 6-point favorite on the road there in Conway, South Carolina. But here now, so over the last 2 weeks, Irvine's played in North Dakota, at Louisiana Lafayette, at Coastal Carolina, and then one day to travel up to New York to take on Columbia. What a strange travel situation for them.
Yeah, this is a game that I like quite a bit because there's a lot of moving parts here. UC Irvine's a better team than Columbia. I don't think there's any doubt about that. UC Irvine's in a really bad spot. There's no doubt about that either. So which matters more here? That's the really interesting thing about this game. If you look at UC Irvine, they have a very veteran team, a very deep team as well. A lot of bench players get a lot of minutes on this team. Mamadou Njai healthy again. That helps a lot, obviously. This is a team that would certainly want to go out in a good way because they have a lot of seniors here, a lot of veteran players who want to finish on a win. Obviously Columbia the same way. Columbia is a veteran team who wants to finish on a win. I think that Columbia has a decent home court advantage, but it's a little bit tough for me to gauge those Ivy League home court advantages because of, the schedule they play against throughout the course of the season. And they don't play very many home court games against good teams in the preseason. Columbia did pick up a couple wins, against Lehigh, Wofford, decent teams, I guess. And they were very close against St. Joe's earlier this year at home, 80-78 loss. I think I have to go with UC Irvine here, though. I think UC Irvine is so much of a better team. Even in this spot, I have to take UC Irvine. And that's not a strong play for me as I think about it. I haven't broken this game down very much yet. But I have to say that I think that there are occasional times that you can put too much into a spot and then not enough into the fact that UC Irvine's just a lot better team than is Columbia. UC Irvine, the team that wins with defense. Columbia usually very good on offense, not very good on defense. I think that Columbia's offense will find it a lot tougher going against this UC Irvine defense.
I think what's fascinating about this game is the line, because you've got Columbia, 1.5-point favorite at the books that have opened, the Chris Books, Bookmaker, and DSI. 5 Dimes also has this game on the board. And for Columbia to be a 1.5 favorite over Irvine, how many points are odds makers putting on this spot? If this was a game on a neutral, and it's difficult to do this because it's obviously not, a neutral and it's not a conventional spot. But, how many points higher do you have Irvine power rated than Columbia? Maybe 5, 6, 6.5, something like that?
Yeah, I was going to say it would probably be about 5.5 points, something like that. So certainly a big premium put on this spot here. I also won't be surprised if the line move goes toward UC Irvine in this one, just because of UC Irvine's dominant performance there on Sunday against Coastal Carolina. And UC Irvine has caught quite a bit of money here in their games that they've played in the postseason already. So I think that the little bit of public that is going to play this game will probably like UC Irvine. It's hard for me to say what the sharp side is going to be here because obviously there's plenty of people that would like to play Columbia because of the spot for UC Irvine. I just think that when you know that this is your final game and UC Irvine can put up one good final effort, I think I have to take UC Irvine in this spot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Sure, UC Irvine's played 3 road games, but they've played 3 better teams than Columbia's played here. Columbia's played Norfolk State, Ball State, and NJIT, and Irvine's played North Dakota, Lafayette, and Coastal Carolina, who's won the Big South before. It's a pretty decent program, and of course, they're going to the Sun Belt for football here. And one other thing that really helps Irvine out is that they had 4 bench guys play at least 15 minutes in that blowout over Coastal, because they put that game in cruise control late. So it's a bad spot, sure, but nobody was really taxed in that game for the Anteaters at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. And also, there was quite a bit of rest time before that game against Coastal Carolina. They played, Wednesday the 16th, then Wednesday the 23rd, and then Sunday the 27th. So these have not been quick turnarounds before this game. Now, this one is a quick turnaround, but before this, they've had plenty of time. And you have to remember that even when they won that game against North Dakota and at Lafayette, Mamadou Njai was injured. So they got through those games despite their best or most important player not being out there. and now they have him back and ready to go. And as long as he's healthy and going to play in this game, and I'll have to check more on the status to make sure that he is definitely going to go. He's had some knee injuries, as just general knee issues, as most guys who are 7'6" do have. As long as he's ready to go in this one, I like UC Irvine.
Well, let's look at these early Final Four lines here then, and then coming up on Friday's segment later in the week, we'll talk a little bit more about the Final Four games, some of the line moves, that type of thing, and also your approach to Major League Baseball betting. And we'll get you on throughout the Major League Baseball season to discuss some things, but we won't be doing regular weekly segments with Kyle Hunter, at least not that I can foresee, and that, of course, is subject to change. But you've got Villanova getting some love here against Oklahoma. Villanova up to a 2-point favorite in this one. Final Four, of course, in Houston this year. Surprised by the initial line move on this game, or not really?
No, not really. I think Villanova's been really impressive. That Villanova defense has been very, very good. One thing I will say is, this has to be one of those head-scratcher lines, though, when you say that, Villanova lost to Oklahoma 78-55 on December 7th on a neutral floor. So now they're favored. I think this has to be one of those, the line tells a story like you talk about, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. And, you've gotten really fortunate with Oklahoma here in that they haven't had a really awful shooting performance yet. And we talk about this all the time with teams that are relying on jump shots. One bad one and you're done. And if it comes against a team playing as well as Villanova, then, I could see why there's a lot more risk attached to backing a team like the Sooners as opposed to the Wildcats.
Yeah, I could make a good case for either team in this game. And I think the reason that this one is getting so much, or Villanova is getting so much respect here is they just knocked out Kansas, a team that a lot of people thought was going to win it all. I think Villanova was really impressive in that game. Full disclosure, I had Kansas in that game. I think Kansas played one of their worst games of the season. I still think Kansas is a better team than Villanova, but they didn't prove it the other night, and that's what they had to do. So, this is one of those spots where, Villanova gets revenge from earlier in the year. I think it would be easy to overblow that, though, because, Oklahoma is plenty motivated for this game. There's going to be no motivational edges here in the Final Four. The other thing that's tough to go against a team like Oklahoma is that, they have the best player on the floor in Buddy Hield, and he's already proven several times that he can take a game over. This is one of those where I think that it should be a very good game. Honestly, I'm looking a lot more forward to this game than I am the second game. Usually they try to put the better game second, but I think this is a much better game of the two in the Final Four. And, in general, Oklahoma relies on the jump shot a lot. Villanova actually shoots quite a few threes themselves. And throughout the course of the season, they weren't very good on them. And now in the NCAA tournament, they've been very good at them. So, it could be one of those games where it matters a lot who's knocking down the three-point shot and who's not. The other thing, though, that you have to remember about Villanova is excellent from the line. If they are playing ahead at the end of the game, they have several guys who knock down 85% of their free throws. And that's very tough to come from behind on. So, if you get behind Villanova late, you play the fouling game, it usually doesn't work out.
Well, Syracuse takes on North Carolina in the other game. North Carolina 9-point favorite in this one. Syracuse, got hot at the right time. I mean, that's basically all we can really say about this. And they got a favorable draw because they were able to avoid Michigan State. But you can't use that excuse anymore for Syracuse. So they're here. They deserve to be here. We got about 30 seconds left streaming live for today's show. Which way do you expect this line to move?
Boy, man, I don't know. I think this is a really good line. I set this line at -9, so it's exactly where I thought it would be. I think the total is very good as well. I think that Syracuse is a team that, you could still make a good argument. Maybe shouldn't have been in the tournament based on their body of work, but obviously they're one of the best teams, and, they've gone out and proven once they've gotten into the tournament how good they are. So at this point, I can't take anything away from them, and I think this also goes to speak to having a really good coach like Jim Boeheim prepping you for every game. It matters a lot. I still can't believe how Virginia folded yesterday. I certainly wouldn't have believed a veteran-laden team, Virginia, with a lot of good players in the backcourt, would just fold with the full-court press that Syracuse put on them. I didn't see that one coming. I don't think that North Carolina is going to struggle with a press against Syracuse, and I also don't think that Syracuse is going to want to press